All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I have 6:30 on my iPhone clock. Looks like we've got everyone here that we need to have here. And I'm going to call this to order. And if you have a flag somewhere in your house, we're still going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
United States of America,
for which it stands,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you,
I
everybody.
move we approve the agenda, but not necessarily in that order.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone wants to call or talk about?
I do have something.
Okay,
It's about item F, the animal control report.
yes.
Okay. I've got a question as far as when these fees are taken out, is there any way, is there a process that we are able to recoup any of these fees? Or are they being recouped currently in some manner? As far as dog licensing, part penalty towards the owner, in part or in full, when these animals have to be taken care of?
John, I would think that's a question for me.
Yes.
Susan, I bill the individual owners once I get a report from the Animal Humane Society in Woodbury, which comes quarterly. So I literally just got the first quarter one about a week ago, and I billed for calls that happened between January and March. So I send an actual invoice to the owner with the amount that Daryl charges in addition to what the Humane Society charges. So if they pay the bill, we recoup. If they don't, I make several attempts with interest, and then we can send it on to state collections or put it on their property tax bill as a special assessment with the approval of the board.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Thanks, Chris.
Uh-huh.
Chris, as long as I have you here, before you mute your microphone, let's see, I have to admit one other person here. Bear with me a minute, please. Okay, before I leave you, because there's timeliness to this, I saw your note today about the cleanup crew that comes in after the absentee voting.
Mm-hmm.
And we have absentee voting yet this week 2 more times.
Yep, Thursday and Friday. Mm-hmm.
Between you and Dan, are you comfortable with still using that provider? Because they've done it for 6 times. So I just want to make sure that we have someone in place to sanitize and clean up after each voting.
Well, I don't know that it's just solely up to me. Vicky's involved too. Vicky re-sanitized the whole town today with bleach and alcohol to make sure it was clean, because it wasn't, we didn't feel it was disinfected enough. So she cleaned this afternoon. So I don't want that decision to be up to me.
Well,
Her input is just as important.
That's fine. Vicky's here too. But when Dan is here, because if we don't talk about it now, then Dan will have the same cleaning crew come back on Thursday. So I just wanted to make sure if there's additional work he has to do, fine. But just so you and Dan and we're all talking about it.
I think, from my point of view, I mean, I observed, Pete cleaning all the surfaces, and he's using, professional tools, CDC approved cleaners and that kind of stuff. So, and, he's cleaning, for other places like the fire department. Prescott Town Hall and stuff like that, you know, a number of places which I mentioned, but you know, a lot of it comes down to what we tell them to do, because I didn't, somebody had mentioned toilets, and, you know, I always thought we had somebody that did toilets. And so, you know, a
No.
special COVID kind of thing wouldn't be.
We don't have anybody that cleans the town hall, Dan. Typically Vicky does it.
Okay. So if you want them to do more, I mean, if there's a, you know, that's I guess that's a decision that either the board should make, or, you know, we just delegate it and say, if you want him to do more, fine. And if you want to find somebody else too, you know, I don't have a problem with that either. I know that we were in a pinch, and so I got a recommendation from somebody from a cleaning vending service that does training, you know, in this sort of thing. And so I said, you know, can you give me somebody who I know would be responsible and you know, who would respond to a, you know, a request in this situation. So that's all we did. So and I just told them, you know, basically all the vertical and horizontal surfaces, you know, that are touched, you know. So
Well, just so we're not on cleaning all night, Dan, can you work with Vicky and Chris tomorrow and find out what additional services they need, and then have your cleaner person do that Thursday and Friday, whatever
yeah,
the two nights
there's no need necessarily to me as an intermediary, you know. I mean, I met him for the first time when he came, you know, the first time. So, but I'd be happy to do it if you feel like, you know, you need it, because I'll be there, you know. I'll be there, you know, when he comes, you know, to observe.
Can I
Okay.
talk for a sec?
Sure.
If this is something we feel we should have, I mean, maybe we should keep a cleaner in that building and get a contract done. You know, I mean, get some bids and maybe accept 3 bids and get a contract done. I don't, that place isn't that big, and it's not that much to clean. It couldn't cost that much per month. So, but if it's for just this COVID thing right now, then yeah, just go with the cleaners and the surfaces and that.
I don't know, you know, what his perspective is, but I would expect that he would prefer to do more cleaning to make the trip worthwhile, you know, when he comes. So
in which case we should have a contract so we can both be in agreement as to what services are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that would probably make a lot of sense to come up with something like that.
In that case, maybe we could discuss this again next month and throw it on the agenda and maybe put it out for some bids.
I don't mind doing that. I just want to, my number one priority is to make sure we get through COVID-19.
Yep, for sure. No, I get that.
No one comes in and we haven't had a cleaning crew in between voting on one day and voting the next. And the simple thing is, if the clerk and the treasurer have additional needs now, let's tell them what those needs are so they can do it. So
what happened to the cleaning lady we used to have, Don?
But we can't hear you,
Don,
Tim.
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
What happened to the cleaning lady we used to have?
We haven't had a cleaning person for like 4 years.
Okay.
I've been doing it. Jeff asked me to do it because the last time we tried to hire somebody, nobody would do it.
Well, I think we should.
Okay.
We should discuss it at another time, or next month. Or
okay. I'll put it on the agenda for next month, and then just because Thursday is right around the corner, so Dan, you and Chris and Vicky are all on the same wavelength tonight.
I think so, yeah. And just for your information, though, I'm the one who turned the water off on the toilet in the first stall because, you know, it was not functioning properly. It was leaking, and so I put a note on the out of order sign. But the water is turned off, you know, the shut off. But you can just turn it back on if you want. But that valve is just faulty and it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, we have Cody Plumbing.
Yes.
We're waiting on a call from them since they're kind of running at a skeleton crew. They already know about it. They're going to come in and clean up as soon as they can sneak in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All
Thank
right,
you.
if there's nothing else on that, I want to move on. Committee reports.
Can
No,
we
we
go
need a
back?
motion.
Hold it, you gotta approve that.
You got, yeah.
Oh,
For the consent agenda, I have one question.
Okay.
Just on the St. Croix Highway bills, St. Croix County April bills. sweeping for 1,071.51. Are we sweeping or what? I thought we weren't sweeping anything.
No, we are. Each year they come out and do the main intersections.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
So I had a request from somebody for an area too. If you're open to it, I can just let you know that area after the meeting.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the consent agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, committee reports. Fire. Anything new on fire?
Nothing until such time as we can have a meeting.
Okay,
It'll be announced later.
okay. Library, we have no one here from the library. Towns associations are not meeting. EMS is not meeting. We did have a Zoom intergovernmental committee meeting in April. And the main concerns there are not only making sure that we have adequate care for anyone who gets sick with our hospitals and so on, but there's getting to be tremendous amounts of stress put in our community with people being out of work. So that's a major, major concern. The day we had the meeting, the school had just found out that the governor had canceled school through this school year, and that's putting additional stress on all of the players. From a where boundaries touch perspective, the city of Hudson had a meeting with the state trying to find an accommodation for the interchange at Carmichael, and how that could then dovetail and be compatible with the upgrading of Carmichael Road North. I guess that did not go well. Kind of working with like a state or a railroad. The interchange people want to do what they want to do. The result of that is that the city of Hudson wants to proceed on their own with upgrading and doing planning for upgrading of Carmichael. Basically from the interchange, I'm guessing probably just about to the government center. And that's going to be a couple-year project to plan it, and then a year or two to get it funded and started. The city has asked us to submit a letter of support for Carmichael Road in case we can get some funding for that, an 80% grant. And I'm in the process of helping write that letter. That has to be submitted by the 18th. Excuse me, I got a very scratchy throat tonight. So that's in play. Faith Community Church had some issues with their sewer and water, and they had asked to be annexed to the city so they could hook up to their utilities. That happened extremely fast. If you've driven on Carmichael Road, you know that it's closed and they're extending those utilities as we speak. So I was assured that Faith Community was the only parcel that was being annexed. I shared with the intergovernmental agency and the mayor again that whatever we do, we want to do with overlays and straight lines and zoning that's compatible with our town and the city, so that we just don't do spot zoning and pull out the church here and pull out a home here, and you have one use and it's totally unplanned. So I think we made progress on that. Excuse me, I got to take one swig here. The benefits of being at home. So that's intergovernmental meetings. My report is that there's a lot of people at home in the town, and we have had a lot of calls, a lot of them, with neighbors that are upset with other neighbors. Well, I've had 2 or 3 home-based business calls. I've had 3 or 4 roaring motor calls. I've had, you name it, they've been coming in. I try and assure people that we're all in this together, and because they're home more, they hear more noises, they see more things, and we just have to be good neighbors. There was an accident on Stage Line Road in O'Neill. The gentleman jumped the curb and plowed into a retaining wall, basically totaled his car and destroyed the retaining wall. So tomorrow at noon, I'm meeting with the, actually it's Willow River to get a bid. And we're going to get 2 more bids to see if that retaining wall can be repaired. The county looked at it and said they did not want to do it, and we're not in that business. So it took out the sign, took out the post, took out a little island for phone and electrical and the retaining wall. So we're in the midst of working on that. That's it for my chairman's report. I'll save the rest for roads. Anything under public comment?
Yes, Don. Mike Minnick called the other day. And just for all of you that don't maybe remember, Mike Minnick is the guy that takes care of the parks, cleans the building, put the garbage out, collects the garbage, does all of that. He said, what am I supposed to do? I said, right now the governor said that the parks are closed and the bathroom buildings are closed, and therefore we will let him know at such time as that opens. And in this meantime, just not to be concerned. And the only reason we had 1 dumpster brought in is we had residents that were out picking ditches and wanted to know if there was some place they could bring the garbage. So we had Waste Management bring 1 dumpster in, and so that we can dump that stuff in it. Just so everybody knows, Waste Management, because of the contract they have with the town of Hudson, does not charge anything to the town of Hudson for the dumpsters and the garbage pickup at the town hall. While I'm on that point, did the contract with Waste Management get signed, you know, Don?
It just came in. So no, I
Okay.
have not
Okay.
signed it. It just came
It was
back.
just a question, but that's all I got.
Yeah, no, that's approved and good to go. So
Good.
I think good there. Okay, is there anything else under public comment? Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to go on to roads. I'm going to keep roads short because we're going to talk a lot about it later on. I did get a call from the county. They are out doing their spray patching today. They started today. And they have Tanny, Trout Brook, Bear Drive, parts of Prairie. Basically any pothole that has ever been called in or ones that we could find, I put on their list. So if the town board members have any other potholes that we've missed that need to be spray patched, please let me know in the next, like tonight or tomorrow, because they're out here now. Okay, with that, Hudson Commercial Condos site plan for 726 East Highway 12. And we've got Josh Collins here. And Josh, your microphone is, there you go.
Hi there.
Hi, Josh. And
Hi
you got
there,
Kip
and I
here.
think, yep, Kip's on here too, so.
Yep, I'm here.
Good. Would you like to just bring us up to date where you were? I know there was, well, let me just frame it up real quickly. There were some action steps you needed to take, getting approval for WISDOT to come out onto Highway 12, a letter from Tammy Traxler and Sarah Burrell, and a stormwater management agreement. I've seen all of those come in. I don't know if there's any other items that we've missed, but maybe you can just fill us in as to where you think you are with the other agencies and our town.
Yeah, I think that was most of the loose ends there. I think last time we brought this to you, really, I think the main issues there were those 2 items, and then that outdoor storage thing, which I think we kind of have figured out. This is zoned industrial. We wanted to make sure that we got out front of that. But otherwise, I know the town was hesitant to give us the thumbs up without having the DOT approval there, and then the stormwater management, stormwater management agreement. I think it is a stormwater agreement. Again, the town was a little nervous about that. We really didn't see any issues there. Talking with Kip, and I think that's been taken care of. But really, that DOT issue was, it seemed to me, was probably the biggest outstanding issue, and we've pretty much got the thumbs up there. So I don't know. Do you have any other questions other than that? I mean, when we left it last time was, which hasn't changed, is we're really trying to, we're really just, we'd like to build a building very similar to Brian Ward's building that's already there. It's not really going to act or look, well, it's going to look a little different, but it's not going to act or feel any different than what they have going on there right now. So.
Do the board members have any questions for either Josh or Kip?
Well, we have the, I've got a question. This is
Go
Dan. Yeah. So we have the April 30th letter from Tamara. And I guess the question on that is that, you know, are we using that as kind of a checklist? Is that, you know, what's the status of the items on that? Some of it, obviously, you know, they're giving us a recommendation in terms of our own, what we typically do, you know, in terms of a letter of credit and so forth. But I mean, other than that, is everything else proceeding well?
Can I have you speak to that? Would you mind? Do you have that in front of you?
I was going to pull up that email here, see if I can see what was on the list.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll quick go down what I know. I have it here in front of you. One was updated. This is Tammy's comments here.
Yes.
One is updated construction plans shall be provided to the town of Hudson. Of course, that's going to be the case. We really need to finalize the stormwater ponds once we basically dig our test pits. So there will be one final iteration there, but I don't think anything is really going to change other than we're basically meeting DNR requirements. Number two, the town may consider collecting financial assurances. I guess maybe that's up to you guys.
That's standard procedure. Yeah, we've got that.
Yep. And do you guys do that? I mean, do you guys require a bond, or what do you require for that? I know on our project at Storage Garages of Hudson, we weren't required to put anything down.
We haven't been requiring anything on stormwater maintenance agreements up front. We have, I know the county did previously, and I don't, so apparently the county must be backing away from that. Does anybody else know anything about that? I looked at that and saw that too. I didn't know what to deal with that.
Kip, what are your clients seeing or saying? Is anybody else having to do that, or?
I think they have kind of backed off on that. I know at one point they were.
And they were. I know they were. I just don't know. So apparently they must have, and I don't know. Maybe that's something, Don, that you and Tammy are going to have to work out, so that you don't end up with having problems like we had with that one maintenance building with the seating project. You know what I mean? And no money to do it, you know? I don't know what to ask him to pay on that.
Josh and Kip, why don't we, if you don't mind giving me a call tomorrow,
Sure.
let's talk about that. And you know, what Tim's referring to, what Tammy has done in the past is, you know, we have money for erosion control plans and seeding and all these other issues. But I think the discussion tonight is more narrowly focused on what we would have just for your stormwater management agreement. So I don't have an answer for that tonight.
Well, and it seems to me that agreement, you know, basically puts everything in our lap, and frankly, you know, we're on the hook until that gets finished. Usually, well, my understanding, usually what happens is you collect maybe some money up front to make sure that gets finished, and then once it's finished, then that gets released back to the owners. I mean, it seems to me that would be for something much larger than this. I mean, we're having one really small stormwater pond, and then a not very large one up towards the front of the property.
Right.
If there's a real concern, I get it, and I think that Tim brings up a good point here. But like I said, I think we'll finish it, and you know, and then you can release the funds, or I don't know.
Yeah, quite honestly, I don't know why we wouldn't roll that into an overall bond that we're going to require from you. So I don't know what the nuance is there. Any other board members want to comment on that?
I just think, you know, when they say items, it's not really clear as to what the items are referring to. You know, if it's everything on this list or if it's just really the stormwater focus.
Some of these are going to come as the process, as the construction process begins too. Like obviously, we're not going to have a pre-construction meeting until we know we're actually going to start construction. We're not going to start construction until we actually get our DNR permit because we're over an acre. So I mean, a lot of these things will happen as we move forward with the actual project.
Okay.
Obviously, our goal tonight is just to get the site plan approval through the town board, and then we'll proceed with the regular stuff we do on all these projects as we move forward.
I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, it really feels like that list is more of a, hey guys, remember about this stuff more so than it is. I mean, because each of those things need to be done, you know, in the process of construction here. I think
Right. Yeah.
Kip hit the nail on the head there.
And pretty much all those things on that list, the DNR is going to require anyways. So before we even move it, I know it's a dirt, we got to get all this stuff in there anyways. So I think it is kind of just an FYI from Tammy.
Okay, good.
Okay, I know we're somewhat informal tonight, and this is part of your presentation, but is there a motion from one of the supervisors to, so we can move it to the floor to discuss it further, to either approve or disapprove?
So what are we actually approving?
The site plan.
The site plan as it is? Okay.
Tim, do you have a motion you'd like to put forward?
Yeah.
I have.
Why don't you just make the motion to approve it with the condition that that letter is, you know, all that stuff is met, because like Kip said, they need to do certain things to get certain things. And if they don't meet them, Brian just won't be able to issue the building permit.
Right. Yeah. I think that's
I mean, that's the
essentially
simplest
the
thing.
wording.
I mean, they can't do much until they get the DNR permit, but they got to do some other stuff to get the permit. Then once they get the permit, then they can do the other stuff. Then they have to have the pre-construction meeting. Then they have to do, I mean, so yeah, a lot of that stuff really doesn't have anything to do with us per se at the town level that they need to do, but.
So do we say just approve it? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
Can I make
Normally,
a
as
motion
a
to
site
approve
plan,
it?
all we're approving is the way the building looks.
Right.
Can I
You know
make
what
a
I mean?
motion to
And so
approve it?
because the condos are basically the same way that Brian Wirt's building is the way I understand it. We're approving the site plan for this condo unit to be similar to the existing one to the west. Is that correct? Is my assumption correct there? Yep.
Let me jump in here real quick. Remember, Tim, we sent over those building elevation pictures, and they're similar. I mean, I think that they have 6 units. We have 7. Our awnings are slightly different, but you know, yeah, they're slightly different. I just want to make sure that we're clear there.
Do you know what the date on those was?
I think, was it March?
You got those right, Vicki?
Yeah, I have all his stuff.
Do you have
Yeah.
those?
That was for the March meeting, so we had.
Right.
it was
And we looked at that with Josh and Kip. You know, we had the kind of the curly Q lights that they had and the different colors, and whether or not they're going to have, you know, what their front was like and what their parking ratios were, and even the discussion about whether or not there'd be screening for the storage in the back.
So we basically approved the site plan at that March meeting, didn't we? Other than we wanted all this other stuff resolved, the Highway 12, and
Correct.
so they're back now for approval of the site plan, which they presented in March, and I understand that now. And so the only difference between the site plan approval from March and now is we have approval from the DNR. We don't require any screening on the outside storage because it's commercial, or not commercial, it's industrial. And the stuff in Tammy's letter of April 30th just needs to be resolved prior to completion.
That's
That would be
fine.
Prior
my
to a
motion.
building permit.
Right, okay, building permit. Okay. Anybody got anything else they want to add to that?
No, you mentioned DNR, but I just, in the state, the traffic onto Highway 12 as well, so, and that's been resolved,
did
correct, Josh?
DOT. Not
Yes.
DNR,
Yeah.
DOT.
Yeah, I think Tim, just a misspoke there. Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion on this tonight?
Okay, well,
I was
with that
willing to make that motion.
with that clarification, I make a motion that we approve the site plan, as presented, contingent upon the completion of the requirements as identified in the April 30th email from Tamara Traxler, and any other requirements necessary.
Okay, do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
Discussion? So Tim, as you said, you mentioned DNR as opposed to DOT, but that was part of what you were thinking, right?
Right, that was exactly what I was thinking, Don.
Okay.
It was DOT.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Kip.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
everybody. Yeah.
We're going to
thanks,
be here about another 6 hours, so be sure and stay with us.
Tim. Yeah.
Okay. Induced sales was on our agenda tonight. They have postponed moving ahead because of issues with COVID-19, so they're not with us tonight. Item number 10 was discussion and action on temporary license for Trinity Lutheran and their Willow Fest. I had called them and they called back and said, recurring theme because of COVID-19, they're not moving ahead. They may do something in the fall, and if they do, they'd let us know. So we'll take that off the agenda tonight too. Next is discussion and action on a site plan for Hartman Development Storage Units. So Zach, looks like you're up.
All right. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I'm assuming you guys have the plan kind of in front of you. Looking at the first page, it should kind of show the general site plan. What our goal is we'd like to get approved for the next 3 buildings. Okay, so we've currently got the building to the southeast already built. The rest of the buildings will be basically the same, other than the fact that we're losing the 10 by 10 units on the east side, where the old building had those 10 by 10 units. So everything, the color, the brick that we've got on the current building will all be the same. So. And I guess our plan is, we just wanted to go in to get approved for the next 3, just to kind of get it done in bulk, I guess you could say. We're just going to do one at a time until, as they lease out, then we'll do another one, but we'll just take them one at a time. And we're doing the same thing kind of at the state permit level as well.
So we're looking at this now, right here.
Oh, so that's the kind of overview for the whole project. You have yeah.
But you want the front page that
Yeah.
shows the 4 buildings.
Yeah.
In terms of placement,
Exactly.
Yes, that one.
right here.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, like I said, the southeast building is already complete. So our plan is we're kind of going back and forth on this, but I think we're going to start on the building to the west first. That'll be the next one in line. Originally, we were going to do the one to the north, but we're kind of going back and forth a little bit on the design of that one a little bit.
I don't think that matters to us.
No. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion that would approve the site plan for 3 additional buildings for Hartman Homes on Hartman Circle for storage facility buildings that are identical to the existing building that are there, color and appearance. And that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Does that work? Is that what the intent is with the 4 buildings, to make them uniform in appearance, or?
Yeah. So like I kind of said, the building in the southeast has those 10 by 10 units on the east side. We just found there's a market for them, but it's kind of a pain to deal with, all for $75 a month, for those. So we're just going to forego those on the next building and just basically make the building 10 feet shorter. So the first building was 80 by 150. This one will be 80 by 140. Okay. So the only thing I will say is the building, like I said, to the north, and I guess maybe we'd have to go in for a separate approval on this one. We're debating on maybe adding the 10 by 10s to that building to the north, which does contradict what's shown on the plan currently for that building. But so the one to the northeast would be identical to the one to the southeast potentially, but for now we're just going for the one on the west, which would be that 50 by 140, or I'm sorry, 80 by 140 with 14 of the 20 by 40 units in it.
Doesn't your layout, Zach, on page 2 show that those 10 by 10 units in there, but they aren't in the other 3? I turned to the second page. Building 1, it shows that they have those 10 by 10 on the east side, right?
I don't, maybe I have a different plan set. I might have a more recent set. Can you hold up yours?
I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. I got such a small screen.
Yeah.
There. See that one building, building 1 shows that it looks like it has the 10 by 10s on the end of the building on the east side.
Correct.
And the other 3 don't show that. But I don't know if that's critical to us either. I don't. Normally what we're doing with a site plan is what's the appearance of the building, color-wise, and the scheme of the overall things.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would affect you guys. I know it does at a state level, so you might have to go in.
Right.
All 3 of these approved at the state level, but if we decide to add the 10 by 10s to the building to the north, we'll have to go get that resubmitted. But yeah, the size of the lot, it's not changing. The only difference would be, I don't know if your plan shows it, but there's a 38-foot space between the buildings to the north. That would shrink to a 28-foot space because we would add.
Oh yeah, it does show that.
Yeah, we'd be adding that 10 feet back onto that building. So, but
We lost the chairman, by the way. I don't know if anyone knows that.
No, I'm
Really?
here.
oh,
Can you guys hear me? I actually, this is
No,
Bill.
it does show that. It does show the 28 and 38 feet.
yeah,
The north shows 38 feet and the south shows only 28. So you saying, Zach, that the north might only be 28 also?
if we decide to add the 10 by 10s to that northeast unit. Yep. That's why we're starting on the southwest side, just to give us some time to kind of see how the market goes and shift it if we need to. So,
Can you
Why
guys
don't
hear
you
me?
make your motion, Tim, so that building number 2 could be 140 or 150?
I agree. I like that idea, Vicky, because I don't think we need to make them come back. I agree.
Not for 10 feet.
Can you make that change, Vicky?
Well, why don't you make a
Please.
motion for the 3 additional building on,
The buildings can be either, what are they?
well, instead of saying
they say?
identical in appearance, how about you say that the buildings can either be 140 or
Pardon?
150?
Please, one at a time.
Yeah, and can you guys hear me? Can anyone
Yes.
hear me? Chris Jordan? Okay. All right, what I wanted to share with you is this is belt and suspenders. My computer bugged out, but rather than leaving that meeting and crashing it so all of us would leave at once, I'm now using my son's computer.
Okay.
So,
I see Chris
so
Jordan.
if you look under C for Chris Jordan, hopefully you can
Chris.
still hear me.
We got you.
I can hear you.
Okay, so where are we at? Are you guys still discussing it, or are we getting ready to
Yeah,
start?
yeah.
Well,
I think
Susan
that
maybe
the
wants to
only
make a motion.
clarification is that, you know, I think what Tim's point is that aesthetically we want it to look similar, but you know the divergence is that one will be 140 and the other 150.
Correct. And the only one that's in question is that northeast building.
Okay, and so I guess the motion, Tim, is just to take it as it was and then just say, but allowing for a change of the length from 140 to 150 feet.
Could be either one,
Yes.
and I agree.
Okay, are you ready to make a motion then?
Can I read it first?
Yes.
Sure.
So Tim made a motion to approve the site plan for 3 additional buildings for Hartman Development storage units on Hartman Circle for storage buildings identical in appearance. Building number 2 can be 140 feet or 150 feet.
Okay, do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that, Ken.
Okay, any further discussion on it?
Yes. Just so you know, Zach,
Yep.
I believe now that you've made that Hartman Circle, that
Yep.
fire number address is going to change. You won't have individual numbers for the whole, it'll be the same number, but I do not believe, I think it's 595, which is out on Hermes Road right now.
Yep.
That number will change now coming off of here, and I'll have to get a hold of Joe Ayers. I do not believe we should charge you for a new fire number at this point, but it will change your address, just so you know.
Okay.
And I don't know how if you're going to just number them building 1, 2, 3. All the other facilities where they have storage, we just have one fire number address for all of the buildings. Okay?
That would kind of make sense to me. So.
Just a discussion point.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion's carried.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Zach.
Yep. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Same offers to
too.
you. You can stay with us for a couple hours yet. You don't have to leave.
Yeah, I got kids screaming, so I better tend to them.
Okay.
Mike's working.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, next item number 12 is discussion and action on the audit. And Dan, maybe you can fill us in as to where everything is with that.
Yeah, so I sent copies of the engagement letter, to everybody. But essentially, what we're doing right now is what appears in this paragraph right here, compilation and preparation services, and then also bullet point, the first bullet point of the next paragraph and the third one. And what this was doing is it's adding, that other bullet point and the complete audit services. So right now we're doing the required CT filing with the state for $3,500, and they would expand their services to include, what they've
I'd like to
identified
make
on
a
here, which includes
correction if
the
I
audit.
can, Dan.
I
You've
beg
been
pardon?
pointing that out. Can I make a correction? You've
Yes.
been pointing out that that cost is $3,500. It's been $1,400 and some dollars and it goes up $25 to $50 each year for the last several years. So what the $5,000 price tag is $3,500 for an audit and $1,500 for the C report. Just so we have a clarification
Okay.
on that. It's not
Okay.
$3,500 for the C
That
report.
doesn't that
It's
that, that doesn't
$1,500.
sound like what Brock had told me,
But that's
that
what
could be
they told us today. That's
Okay.
what they told us today.
okay.
So just
good.
continue
Okay.
that.
So yeah. So then what it is then if based on what Tim is saying, then it's reversed, and because the dollar amount wasn't in the earlier engagement letter. But anyway, this one caps everything, all of the services at $5,000, and that's on page 8.
I'd say something.
Yes.
On my page 8, it says it should be approximate of 5,000. It's not a cap, so it could be more.
Correct.
And what
That's
I'm
correct.
curious with is with all this Corona stuff going on, are they going to be able to come in and do an audit? And if not, I don't think we're really getting a thorough service. And with that,
Well,
I think it may end up costing more than $5,000 because there's going to be a lot of messing around with trying to get them the correct paperwork.
well, I think, can I answer that question for you?
Go ahead.
Chris called today and the gal is working at home. They've been in lockdown for several weeks. And Chris will have to gather all that data up and haul it to her house. She will not come in for an audit. So all of our records have to leave the town hall and go to her home. And I'm not so sure I feel comfortable with that. And then the next part of that I don't understand, I'd like Dan to, what do you anticipate getting out of doing an audit, Dan?
Well, I think that
We've
what
never
is
done an audit
extremely
before.
unusual. What I beg pardon?
We've never done audits before because Jeff Johnson never wanted to spend the money,
Yeah.
frankly.
And actually, one of the things that Sarah Cobbs, who does do our C filing, we're very unusual. We just don't, we're an outlier, when it comes to having audits done. And I think that if you talk to anyone, in terms of business operation and so forth, it's just really our responsibility to do a periodic audit. So I just feel uncomfortable with the idea of not having an audit when we're aware of the fact that an audit hasn't been done, especially for decades.
So
audit-
you still haven't answered my question. Other than you're uncomfortable, what do you anticipate getting done with an audit?
Well, as you can look at the level of services there and so forth, all of that just makes clarifies that there's due diligence in there. And, if there was ever an issue, who of us would say, well, why didn't you do an audit? And you would say, well, we never did an audit, and wasn't important to us. And so I just don't think that we could take that position.
Can
Am I
I ask,
unmuted?
Okay.
can I ask where the money's coming from to pay $5,000 for an audit that we're not really sure we need?
Well, $3,500.
No, because we still owe 1,500 of the remainder.
They're gonna-
Well,
No, the 1,500 is included in the 5,000.
correct. But we're going to pay the 1,500 because you're going to pay for that because they already got the C report.
Okay,
They just haven't completed it yet.
so the 35, where are we gonna pull that from out of our budget? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, it's just something that you just have to make room for because, it's due diligence. It's appropriate due diligence.
I requested an audit on the day I was appointed and I was refused. So now we've got multiple treasurers documents and things going on in this possible audit.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why really, even for your benefit, it should be done, every time there's a switch, a changeover. So make
That's why I
sure that
requested
everything
it.
is carried forward, in a proper
I
manner.
agree with that.
That's why I requested it, but I know my start date, so anything
Yeah.
prior to that will be
Yeah.
pointed out.
Can I say something at this point? I tend to agree with Dan. We should have done an audit, and I don't have anything against an audit. And I agree with Ken, because I read page 8 and I got the same thing you did out of that, Ken, that $5,000 is just the beginning. And if she's got to take all those records and bring them home and try to go through them, and Chris isn't going to be there, to me, that audit is going to take a whole lot longer. I think doing an audit's a good idea. I just think it's the wrong time to do an audit right now with the COVID-19. That's all.
I really think that they should be on site.
Yes, and they normally would have been.
I don't see us getting a good service and having them provide a good product back to us if they can't come on site and look at what they need to look at. If they're going to be making requests for documents and, oh, we need this and now we need that, I don't know. I see them happen in city government and they're always on site. I've been through quite a few audits at our city and they're always on site and they always come in. If they need anything else beyond that, they'll request it. But I think the best thing for an audit is for them to be on site. There's a lot of documents for them to go through. And she can't just take a whole file cabinet out of the town hall and run it up to wherever this person lives, where does the person live? We don't even know that.
I don't even know.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not saying
that's a good idea. Just it's the wrong time. I agree with you, Ken.
Yeah, I just think I don't think it's a bad idea to do so that we make sure everything's straight. I just don't think we're gonna get a good service right now. So maybe we should wait just a little bit longer to do it.
I got a question.
Can we wait to do it till next year?
I've got a question. What you're talking about timeframes here. When does this audit need to be done? Is there a specific date that it has to be done by? And
absolutely not.
Okay, then why are we not just discussing this and saying a possible date instead of throwing it to the wind for some other day? I don't agree with that.
Okay, I'll say January 1st of 2021. How's that sound?
I think that is too late. I think we should consider this year.
Why?
Why? Why wait? If it can be done this year.
You just heard why. COVID-19.
Tim, wait a minute. I'm still running the meeting here. So I don't want all this crosstalk. I want to add 2 things to this. We're under COVID-19. Clifton Larson Allen gave us a proposal. They must have some sense as how they can conduct audits under COVID-19 today, or they wouldn't be in business. So I think it's a fair question to ask and put back on the provider to say, okay, we're under COVID-19. It's not realistic to take all of the materials out of the town hall to the treasurer's home. How will you accommodate us? And I think that's certainly something that we can get a handle on or an understanding from them.
Well, I think we need an answer on that before we approve doing it. I mean, like I say, I'm not.
That's what she told Chris today, that Chris would have, when Chris said, you'll be here to do the audit, she told Chris, no, you need to bring it to my home. So if you want to do that, Dan, call them or Don and find out how they're going to accommodate coming out to the town hall to do the audit. Have at it.
Like I say, I'm not completely against having an audit done, but I don't think they're going to do it in the correct way. And I know they're a professional firm but you know what? You can't even go get a dinner from downtown Hudson and have everything right now. You know, it's business isn't as usual. And with something as important as that, and Dan, I do agree it's important. I think we need to get a good service out of it. If we're going to spend $3,500 extra dollars to have it done, I think we need to make sure we're going to get what we're paying for. That's all I'm saying. And if someone could make that call and find out, and then bring it to the next meeting, you know, maybe we can look at it then. Just my opinion.
Well, I think in terms of framing this
Yeah,
up, what did you say, Tim?
go for it.
Dan, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I would just suggest that, you know, we go ahead and approve it, and you know, if they give us any concerns in terms of being able to complete their audit, that you know, you make that assessment tomorrow, Don. But I think otherwise, I think we should just proceed ahead.
Publicly recorded.
And they're going to do it on site.
You know, they whatever they need to do in order to do the job well, in order to form an opinion, because they're providing an opinion that everything meets generally accepted accounting standards. And so
They're going to tell you that you got to take it to the accountant's home.
You okay
Are
with
they
that?
going to be able to provide that service at the town hall is my question.
yeah, I don't know. You know,
Okay, can we table this and bring it up next month?
And then make the phone calls. I think everybody would feel better if it was done within the town hall. So I would
think
like
so too.
I would
I think
suggest tabling it and talking about it next month, getting those assurances and making sure things are done right so that we're getting a good value for what we're spending $3,500 on. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, Dan,
Yeah, I
it'll
don't
be
think that's going to delay anything.
Yeah, I guess the only concern I have is that you know, this is kind of a package pricing deal, and they're going to be out here, you know, doing some work already, so that we don't want them to the price to change because of the fact that you know,
Our
we're
C
stretching
report
out
data,
two
Dan,
pieces.
was sent in there in February.
Wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't email me, didn't come in and look at it.
Calm down.
Say that again, Tim.
Calm down.
The
we got
C
noise.
report.
This makes
Chris, mute your
Chris, you
microphone.
need to mute your phone if you're going to talk. The C report data was sent to Clifton Larson Allen in February. They just haven't completed it yet. They're not coming on site to do that. We sent the C report data to them. Just like we do every
but
year.
I think that when they do the report, they submit. I guess the question is whether or not, because they said, well, it would be ideally we would be having this approved in May so that they could do it as one item. So if that is incorrect, then you know.
Dan, let me suggest this tonight then. I think we've had a reasonable discussion on this. Why don't you, if you're willing, it'd be your motion. Why don't you visit with them and explain to them the concerns that we've voiced, that we want to do an audit. I think that's what I've heard from Ken and Tim. We want to do it that it doesn't put undue pressure on the treasurer and the clerk under COVID-19 onus that we're under. And it seems to me that if Clifton Larson Allen has been doing our work, they should certainly be willing to extend their pricing and their package deal to us, and we can see where we are in June. Is that something that the board would be in agreement with?
I've had my hand raised for a while.
We can't see you, so that's one of the
Well,
problems.
I have the button right here on the side of the screen so that,
not-
no, I don't have my actual hand on the side. It shows if you want to talk, you raise your hand.
Oh, we can't see those.
We can't see that.
That's actually, that's that blue bar on the very top there.
Clifton Larson has been doing our C report for years. And before that, Steve Tracy did it, Tracy and Thole, before he went to Clifton Larson. They get our information in February every single year. They never come to the town hall to do the C report. We have to take all the reports and all the records to them to do the C report. I print out all the journals, every report, all the copies of the tax settlements, trial balances, every single thing, take it to them. The report is due on May 1st to the state. The state will give you 2 weeks to get it done after that point. If you don't get it done within those 2 weeks, you lose your state aid. They've been doing it forever. I mean, it's been a long, long time since they've done it. So I don't think that this group rate or whatever to put them together is going to change, because they, like I said, they've been doing the C report. That was my deal a long time ago, that I wanted them to do it. We don't have an audit because we have a separate clerk and a separate treasurer. If you have a clerk treasurer, you are required by law to have an audit. So when you have a separate clerk and a separate treasurer and you keep 2 different sets of books, which is what we have to do, that's why 2 separate, we can't even have the same software. They have to be 2 separate types of software. That's what the town decided years and years and years and years ago. And that's why we don't have an audit. There was an audit, I don't know, 2006 maybe, if I remember right, was the last audit we had. But like I said, since they do our C report every year, they can see the difference. They see every single transaction, that the ins, the outs, tax settlements, how much we pay to the county, how much we pay to the city for fire, ambulance, library, all the dogs. We have to do separate reports for the dogs. All different types of county payments. I have to send my W-2s, my 1099s, payroll reports. I mean, there's oodles and oodles of paperwork that, I mean, inches thick of stuff that gets sent to them with that report every single year. So if you want to do an audit, that's great. However, I also want to know where the money's coming from, because that also has to be an agenda item.
This is Don speaking. You know, we're going to find ways tonight, if this works out, to find money within our budgets to order signs and everything else. I think we can certainly find it within our overall budget to pay for it. I do personally feel, you know, we borrowed over $2 million. If we haven't done an audit since 2006, that's 14 years. I'm not sure. I remember being on the board where we said we didn't need to be bonded. I'm not sure what the bonding issues are, but I do think that we should be looking as a board, unoffensively, just saying, as we do the C reports, they should be doing an audit. And if they pull random things to test and say, hey, yeah, everything checks out, that's great. I also think the benefit of an audit is to give us advice to say, yeah, you're doing some things great here. We've seen best practices in other areas. Maybe you should try doing it this way to tighten up a couple of things here or there that we can learn from. So it isn't all bad. So I think we can break these into 2 pieces tonight. If we need to do an audit, we can certainly find the money in the budget. And if we have to put that on an agenda item next time, we can to move that money around. I understand COVID-19. I think we can move this perhaps to June and discuss it then. but I don't think we should move it to 2021 or anything else. I think we should take a look at it.
I'd like to look at it in June and get some assurances from them on how it's going to be done. Because I don't want it to end up costing more because of the way things are done. Because they're going to be done in an unorthodox way that audits are done. Like I said,
I think that's very fair, Ken. I
That's
agree
fine.
with that.
Yeah, let's do that.
And I think Clifton Larson gets comfortable. I'm saying with nothing pejorative at all. I mean, I was asked to sign a contract on April 26th with Clifton Larson that was supposed to be sent out December 5th. So, you know, there's room for improvement there on all fronts. And it's not criticism, it's just how can we do this better? And I think with several $1 million in our budget and other municipalities that do audits as a matter of course, we need to kind of move ahead and say, yeah, we're doing it too. We have to do it. So those are my feelings on it.
I also think if we're going to do it now, maybe we should plan to do one every 2 years or 3 years or some kind of time frame.
I would support that too.
Mhm.
I really would.
Yeah.
And Chris, I'm sorry it wasn't done at the beginning when you came on. I mean, it's always good to have a fresh break there. And I know the constraints we're under. So why don't we, if we're in agreement tonight, why don't we push this out to June? I'll put it on the agenda then, and we can add where we take it from the budget if we do it then. Can we get a consensus on that?
That sounds good. I'm good with that.
I'm
Okay.
also good with that.
Tim
I'm okay with that, yes.
and Ken, you're okay with that?
Yep, I'm okay
Okay.
with that.
Okay, then I don't think we even need a motion tonight. If there isn't anything else on that, I want to keep moving on.
Don, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I need to know next week or the week, I don't even know what date it is, the week after. I need to know where the money's coming from the audit though, because I need to put that on the agenda, where we're moving it from. So
Why don't
if you could let me
take it-
know
Okay,
so I can put it on the agenda.
sure.
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
just suggesting tonight, you know, maybe we take that out of our maintenance budget here too. You know, we've got
No, you
room.
can't. You can take it out of there, but you got to move it to a different account, Don. That's her
Well,
point.
Yeah, but her question is, which account are we moving it?
All right, so take it from road maintenance.
Correct.
Okay, I will put it on the agenda for that.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we take it from that and then move it to the account
Yep,
where
so
we.
you'll have to approve it at the June meeting. I just needed to know how to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, let's do that. Then we don't
Okay,
have to
thank you.
even, I'll think it again.
I would
Thanks.
suggest we look and make sure there's not somewhere else we can pull it from. Just because of our,
There really isn't much, Ken. With our total town budget,
yeah, I know.
most of the accounts, and that's what their concern is, are pretty set other than road cost. And that's why when they froze our levies back in 2003, I think it was, they really limited what we could do with roads because our budget, our levy was frozen. And we haven't added any increases other than the value of homes since then. And so anytime we take anything, it needs to come out of that public works portion of the budget.
Okay.
That's it.
We've done a pretty good job
Unfortunately.
looking through that from you name it. We're tight on a lot of stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just do that then for the June meeting. Crack filling, number 13. Let's move that down into our broader discussion on signs. And let's move to discussion and action, possible action on the RFP for engineering services. And again, I apologize for yet having visual. Maybe it's to your advantage not seeing me, so I'll just stay with audio. I'll just set the tone for this. We had 3 RFPs that went out: Ayers, Cedar, and SEH. We had 3 of them that came back. I think the benefit for these RFPs, which I always learn something from them, is when you send it out to qualified people and ask how they'll solve a problem, it's kind of amazing how they approach the problem. So I have some thoughts on this, but I want to make sure we discuss it amongst the board members first. So with that, I'll throw it out for discussion. Does anyone have any general thoughts on it they want to share?
I, read through each one of them and then got to the hourly rates and the labor rates, and they just seem to be all over the board. I can't make heads or tails out of any of the hourly rates. So.
Well, if
I got
might,
a couple comments. Go ahead, Don.
No, I just want to start at the helicopter view. I think they're all qualified. We had a concern going out with this that there would be a conflict of interest, either that neighboring municipalities wouldn't want them working with us, or they would be doing work for developers, which we didn't want to have take place. All of them have come back and said, well, we don't see a conflict with other municipalities. And SEH even came back and said that if they were awarded the contract, they would do no work with any developers. So I think they're all in equal footing on that. I think what we have to do is really take what they're giving us and narrow down the scope as to what we think we need for our town, and then use that revised scope of services to have them put some pricing on it so we can compare what they are proposing to bill out as opposed to what we are being charged now from the county, community development, and the highway department. And if I might, I thought I shamelessly steal stuff from these proposals, but I found it in the SEH proposal under the town of Kinnickinnick, which we could talk to them in the future. But I'm just going to read their 3 sentences because I thought it really captured what we're looking at. It says, SEH has served as town engineer for Kinnickinnick Township for 18 years. Duties include reviewing certified survey maps, CSMs, and development plans, designing and managing road improvement projects, updating town maps, inspecting construction of developments, and attending planning commission and town board meetings. And I think this is our first cut tonight, but it will be pretty easy for us to meet again, maybe in another Zoom meeting, and say, well, what do we want? If they're not charging us to attend meetings, and if they're not charging us to give us general advice, we probably don't want to be doing some big sewer project or, a bridge project, or even getting tons of grant writing. But we really need to have that interface between what is happening now, where collectively, the 7 of us or whatever number we have, we all look at a CSM and we all try to come up with a condition, and it's kind of just unworkable for us. And I'm open, if we kept the highway department to do our roads, and we had these people review our CSMs, and we kept Tammy to do the stormwater management. I'm just throwing out all these variables. If the county was still willing to work with us on an ad hoc basis, I think that would really help us narrow down the scope as to what we would use these providers for. So that's my general overview as to what I read through all of these, which was quite detailed.
When I looked at it, I guess as Ken points out, just looking at the hourly rates, the lowest rate on Cedar Corp is the intern rate, which is $65 an hour, and SEH doesn't have one single person, not even the project manager, gets $65 an hour rate. So it's kind of like it's totally a different pricing scheme. You'd almost wonder, well, can SEH really do it, for that amount? And yet here they are, they're doing the work, for, the city of Hudson, and they're doing a lot of work for the county and town of Kinnickinnick. And so I just look at it and think, wow, why would we even consider Cedar at this point? With their high rates and being outside the county.
I also noticed SEH is in New Richmond. I didn't know they had an office there.
Yeah.
I think in Ayers has theirs in River Falls. I think having someone right here locally is of benefit.
Don, if I could chime in. I've been on a lot of projects where I've seen or touched base in some format with the Cedar Corp. And there is a connection there with unionized workers. So that could be where some of this higher rate is coming from.
Well, I think Susan, when we're done, I appreciate that comment. I think when we're done, our goal should be, we have a benchmark. We know what the county charges us for these services today. And the RFP providers should be at least as competitive. I mean, that would be our hope. We'd hit a home run if they were more competitive. But then we also have to sit down as a town board and collectively with our clerk and treasurer and say, how much of this work can we reasonably do now that we're 8,700 people? And these projects are getting more and more complex with wetlands and steep slopes and everything else. So that's why I'm trying to keep our conversation of saying this is a great first step, but maybe that's the control of saying, well, here's a CSM we just did, and it cost the applicant X, and we hope you can do it for X.
Don, can I say something?
Sure.
I think Dan was misleading with SEH's hourly rates though. Because if you look at it, there's also a 1.8 multiplier for labor costs. So actually the hourly rate, if they use $40 an hour, the hourly rate is really $119.14.
Right. Or 100.
There's no such thing as $46 an hour. So that's,
And quite honestly, this is what we're going to wrestle with.
And did anybody bother to call any of the references? I mean, Cedar Corp does North Hudson and the town of Troy. So they do, Cedar Corp has looked at our stuff, because anytime something goes to North Hudson for extraterritorial, Cedar Corp has to look at it. So right. I don't know if anybody called Dan in Troy or called Stan in North Hudson.
No,
and did anybody call Ayers or any of the
Vicky, I know we're constrained by Zoom, but I'd like to answer that. No one called them because this is our first cut at this. And I think the first cut should be exactly what we're doing here, is to look at their proposals, find out which or all of them who we want to re-invite, and talk to them directly through a Zoom meeting and share with them, hey, we have these questions, we have these concerns, and we need to flesh out as to what our scope of services are. I thought they're very well done, but honestly, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of master planning and cityscapes and park planning and bridge and sewer projects. That's why I said we've got to cleave some of that stuff apart and get down to, we don't need a principal for that perhaps, but we need something more than an intern. And we need to have the best person that we can possibly get, or persons, to be on the job. And this is our scope of services. And by the way, that scope should follow what the county is doing for us today, because that's the whole reason for us doing this. And my only caveat to that, and I'll try and quit talking, is that I guess I'm a glass half full kind of person. But if we end up saying, hey, we still would like to keep the county highway department to do our roads because they've been very effective engineering wise and cost wise. That's great. I'm just making up examples. But if we start seeing that we need more help with wetland delineation or these things, do you have the bench strength to help us there?
Can I add
Susan,
something?
you got
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
Susan, and
go
then,
ahead.
yeah.
Don, my question or input would be, could we come up with a mock-up of a couple ideas or things that we would need pricing on so that we can compare apples to apples so we know what we're getting charged for what we're asking for in a more narrow manner?
Yes. My suggestion is not to overwork any of us. I think as a board, we should do a work session and pull a sample CSM and pull a sample, minor or major, and just say, okay, here's all the stuff we've looked at. How would you advise us on this? Because what they're really saying is that we can even attend your planning commissions or your board meetings, and then you'll get a report like all of our other clients that says, we approve this, or, you should approve this, but you have to approve this with these conditions. All the work that Tim and Vicky and all of us are doing today of saying, whoa, make sure you have this, make sure you have that. It's the backstop that we don't have today because we don't have that level of staffing. So I don't have the answer today. I'm just trying to stimulate conversation.
I'm kind of with Susan on that. I mean, I'm looking at like Cedars, and there's 20 different classifications for, principal, director, senior project manager, technician. I mean, which ones of them are we going to actually use for what we need? And I think we should sit down and figure that out, and then come down to what rate we're going to fall at with each one of these companies, because I think they're all highly qualified. And I'm going to add heirs. I've known Christy Trico, who's the project manager. She was an engineer at the city of River Falls, and she is awesome with stormwater and land preservation and all that stuff. She is really good. So I mean, I know it's a personal contact with me. She's not a personal friend of mine, but I will say I know her, and she is a really good engineer. But yeah, as far as the fees and the money, I mean, I'd like to get that a little more narrowed down to, and like you say, maybe do give them an example and say, what would you charge us for this?
Well, that's why I asked if anybody called North Hudson or Troy or any of their references to see, because like I said, they look at every single one of Troy's CSM's developments, all the plats, everything. North Hudson's used them. I mean, if you look at their references, they've been in some of these municipalities for many, many years, and we could easily find out how much,
Vicky, I certainly see that as the next phase of this process. Yeah, yes, calling them, finding out what their charges are, but then how that relates to what they would be doing on ours from the applicants. They should be telling us, hey, you're going to get a technician 2 and a junior PE 3, and the blended rate's going to be this. And we don't think it'll cost more than 3.5 hours of our time to do a CSM. And, this is something we can budget towards. And then we can say, well, great, this is with your help, Vicky, and your help, Chris, we can say, well, this is what we've been billed from the county repeatedly. So if you can do it for the same price or cheaper, then I think we're doing a good thing here.
well, we don't budget anything for it.
No, we don't budget.
I was going to say, I'm really confused on, in all the discussion here, I got 2 things I'd like to say at this point. You said, Don, they all don't charge to come to meetings. The only one I saw that in is Cedar Court. I never saw that in either Ayers or CEH, that the SCH, that they don't charge to come to meetings. And that's important. And here's the reason for that. And that's why I think you'd call the other municipalities to find out what do they charge for a CSM, what do they charge for a preliminary plat, what do they charge? Because as an example, I know talking to Teresa Johnson from St. Joe, today, we will not pay any of those fees. We haven't paid for them before. We just absorbed that cost and didn't make the developer pay for it. In the future, in order to come to a CSM at St. Joe, you have to pay. And I don't know if it's $150 or $200. Today, we don't charge them anything for that because you're going to pay the engineering firm to do that. So we're going to want to know, just like you said, Don, not to budget, to make a cost determination of when they come to request some of what that cost is going to be. They come for a concept. You make them charge for that because you're going to ask the engineering firm to look at a concept. So a developer bringing a concept in has to pay for that. If they bring a preliminary in, they got to pay for that. If they got to bring it, like Prairie, Summer Prairie, they brought that preliminary back 3 times. In St. Joe, they would have paid each time they brought that preliminary back because you're going to have the engineering firm pay for that. And all of a sudden, the developer starts to say to their engineering firm, hold it, you need to get this right before you go in the first time. And so we aren't going to be budgeting for that. We're going to be determining what to charge for it ahead of time because the engineering firm is going to be charging us for that. And I think we want to make sure that unless we decide, well, you're just going to have an open-ended, and I don't think the developers are going to want that. Whatever the engineering firm charges us, we just want to pass through to you. I think they're going to want to know a bottom line price tag from us. And I think whenever we work out an engineering firm, we'll sit down and do all of that at that time.
There is no bottom line dollar, Tim. Isn't there? Call Stan Wecken in North Hudson. Call Dan Pearson. Everybody I've talked to, you know, if you're bringing something in, you're giving us a deposit of $5,000 or whatever it is. And when that's done, we don't go any further till you give us more money.
Okay. So you just keep passing it through with it. Okay.
That's a discussion we're going to have amongst ourselves as a town board and
the town board doesn't pay for any of it. The developers pay for all of it.
No. Vicky, you gotta let me finish my sentences. That's something we're going to have to come up with as a town board to say, what do we want to have as a process for development in our town? And if it's open-ended and I'm a developer that walks in and says, just write me a check for $5,000, and when that's done, write me another check for $5,000, I think it's a fair question to ask of the developer going, what am I getting for that? And it's the same thing that I'm saying now. You guys are misunderstanding my concept of budgeting. I'm not saying that we're budgeting for this. I'm saying that we have a cost of services to say, this is what we're going to charge you for this. And here's why we're charging it, but we've done it as cost effectively as we can. We're not having a $200 principal do the work when a $100 technician can do the work. And I'm saying, yes, I can call Dan Pearson, I can call Teresa, but I thought that was premature for our discussion today. And we really do the same thing when they come in and ask for what's going on at the county. We charge them a fee, and then if that doesn't work, then we have to charge them more. But at least we have something to compare it to. Tim, you mentioned can I just have one question to Tim? You mentioned St. Joe, Tim. I mean, does Teresa or the St. Joe board, do they have a comparison analysis as to how their rates compare with the county?
No, they've never used the county that I can ever remember.
Okay.
They've always used an engineering firm. And I think that's why we're looking at this, Don. I don't think the county is going to continue to offer those services for us. The writing's on the wall. Even you look at Tammy's comments tonight about that stormwater. We think you should start to withhold money for that. The county's always done that before, Don.
Right.
I think they're starting to back away from a lot of those services.
I'm not in disagreement with any of that. I'm just saying that this is our first cut at this tonight, which is why we're discussing it. Ken, you had a comment?
I just want to say, I want to kind of piggyback on what was just said about the possibility of St. Croix County not doing this. Is I've worked in government for close to 20 years, and the ups and downs and the terrorist attacks and 9/11s, and anytime anything bad happens, government gets hit 6 months down the road, and then it's a 2-year deal. And I'm with this. I know we got to get this. I think time is of the essence getting it done, because I'm afraid that St. Croix County is going to say, well, this is one thing that we may have to cut out right now because of what we're going through budget wise, because their budgets are going to get hit. And Dan, you know that for sure. You know that also. So I am all for doing a working session and sitting down and having a discussion about it amongst the 5 of us, and see if we can come up with a way to proceed with maybe getting some concrete numbers and getting promises that they're not going to charge at meetings, and, questions that we have. I would like to sit down, but with that, once again, I think that's hard to do on a Zoom meeting. So that might have to be in person.
I actually think if we all collect our comments at a Zoom meeting just amongst the board here, it could be quite efficient, because each of us will go to these proposals and say, this is our wish list, and try and get that on a wish list paper.
I'm sorry, Don, I agree with Ken. I don't like Zoom meetings. I think I can't see what you're thinking, Don.
Same. But I definitely
Where
think
when we sit down together, I can see that.
I definitely think we should get this done in the next month or two, couple of months. But I think I'd like to sit down in person, and so we can all talk to each other and look at documents and look at the documents together instead of apart.
Okay.
The Board of Adjustment can meet, we should be able to meet.
I think
earlier today you wanted to meet via Zoom, so
I told you that I agreed you were correct on that.
Okay. So the issue for tonight is, do we think we have a process, whether we meet in person or meet with Zoom? We still have homework we have to do as to what our wish list is. And I heard Tim's wish list, so I'll just go first. Hey, don't charge us for these meetings. Make sure we know exactly what you're charging us for. I used the example of Kinnickinnick. I thought that was a great thing of, these are the main things that we see. CSMs will go through the list. I don't want to repeat it. But then I think they can come back and say, yeah, this is what we are gonna charge based on what we do in if it's Cedar Corp, this is what we charge for people in Troy. Here's our list. If it's St. Joe, this is what we charge in St. Joe. Those numbers weren't in these 3 proposals. All we had were hourly rates from the different employees. So I think that might be a good jumping off point. Those are the sum total of my thoughts.
What are we going to respond to these 3 proposals with?
I say, Dan, you were trying to say something, but you're muted.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying, I think that, we should get a couple of samples of projects, and then have them work on that. And maybe it just makes sense. I know that, we've talked about 2 different services here, REH and Cedar. And maybe to simplify it, maybe we do just cut out errors at this point, to bring it down to the 2, because they're essentially the guys who are doing a lot of the work around here. So maybe to simplify things, does that make sense to anybody?
Well, heirs are the people out of River Falls.
Right. Yeah.
And Cedar Corp's are the ones out of Menominee. I
know, and again, my preference would be is all things being equal, and in fact it seems less than equal, because it seems the REH rates seem to be better, even with the multiplier.
SCH
SEH, I'm sorry. Yeah, SEH, the rates are better. And besides, the fact that they're, outside of the county, my inclination would be to say, hey, let's, SEH would be, more in the driver's seat. But, if people feel very strongly that we should give Cedar Corp, keep them in the mix, then maybe we should bring it down to Cedar Corp and SEH. But that's my thought on it.
You need to remember, we've worked with heirs for years.
We have.
Say they're all good companies.
I still think we should keep
They're
all
good.
three in
They're all
with
good
this
companies.
process.
I'm just thinking if we had to pick out one in order to keep our workload a little bit lighter and make it a little bit simpler.
My preference is we keep all three of them in
Okay.
right now.
I agree, Don. If we gave them all the same, what we're asking for, and let them come back, that's a starting point.
Mhm.
And we can shuffle the dust out of after we get 3 answers back.
Okay. Any other comments on this tonight? Because I see it is 8 o'clock already. So any other discussions we want to have on this?
So just going back to the references and so forth. So are we, Don, are you pursuing then the references, from, the other local townships, or how's that going to happen?
Well,
or should we do it?
Here's the missing link on this. There's 2 missing links that I see, because I've done a ton of these, and I'm not saying that's the way to do it. The missing link that we have right now, we've got 3 beautiful proposals back, and we as a group have not defined exactly what we want for a scope of services.
Yeah.
That will be a little gray, but we're pretty close as to what we want. We should do that. We should do that in a working session. The second one then is via Zoom, or however we do it, but Zoom's probably the best way, is, hey, we just want to meet you guys and tell me who John Smith is. Tell me who Mary Smith is, and how you're approaching this. You're going to get a feel for the people you're going to work with. And we can't close this circle yet, because this is what we think we need. Give us a sense as to how much this is going to cost. And then we can start doing what do you think of this deal with the Dan Pearsons and the Teresa Johnsons and whomever else might be on their recommendation list. I don't mind calling those people, but I think it's premature to do that.
Okay, I'm fine with that too.
And honestly, if the county says we can't do it as of June 1st, then we're just going to have to pour the coals to it and figure it out. So those are my feelings.
I think you need to get a working session scheduled right away.
I would agree.
Same.
I'll send something out. For a working session. If we do a working session, I'm going to throw this back at the board. Do you have your thoughts collected as to what you want to put down for scope of services?
Well, could we, are we thinking at that point in time, that we would just kind of pull out some CSMs, or what are we going to do? And that would be one of the things that I think we'd want to do, is identify, is this a fair representation? And then that would be one of the things we'd want to identify in our working session, as well as identify, what are the other kind of services that may not even necessarily be in that CSM. We try to get a couple of projects that cover pretty much 90% of whatever we do, and
Tim,
go with those.
Tim and Ken and Vicky, or Dan, is that something you guys can pull out? Do you have a couple of simple ones we can look at?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know if that's.
No, I don't, Don. To answer
I don't
your
know if that's
question.
even allowed with your RFP. I mean,
What I think you just want to do is tell them, I want to get from you what you would charge to review a CSM, a concept of a major development, a minor, 4-lot minor development, what you would charge for a preliminary of a major plat, what you would charge for a final plat, what would you charge for stormwater?
Okay, before we do all this, Tim, then just, all I'm asking is, let's throw that on a piece of paper and push that back and forth so we know what our list is going to be.
Yeah, I say set a date.
What I
for the
wanted to
meeting.
discuss
Yeah, I
in a
think-
working session.
You need to do a working session and you need to get the meeting with them set up like yesterday.
We don't have to have it set up like yesterday. I mean, really,
Well, I
we
think
don't.
we have to so that we can keep it moving. Otherwise, it's not gonna move.
This has been moving. This has been moving. It's on the agenda for us to discuss tonight. They came back April 28th. Today's May 5th. We have not lost time on this. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. All I'm saying tonight is I'm trying to narrow this down so we know what we want. And if you, rather than going through all this stuff verbally tonight, if you have a sense of that, then just put it in a note so we can say, hey, we're going to have a working session and here's the basis of it. Then at least all of us can be looking at the same thing.
Let's all plan on bringing something to the meeting if we're gonna, if we want to put input. And I just say we just save it all for a working session to be
Okay.
scheduled pretty quick.
Okay. And if you want a quick working session, I'm saying this as the town chair, we're going to do this with Zoom because we've
And
got
I'm not
absentee.
going to be there.
Well, then you'll have to not be there because we have absentee
That's okay.
voting.
I'm okay with that, Don.
Yep, that's
You
fine.
decide.
I just did. I just tried to finish my sentence. We have absentee voting going on, and we'd have to clean the town hall again and sanitize it. And I think for this initial working meeting, we can get through it with Zoom. So Ken, are you available during the day at all?
Can we wait until after the election? Is that too long?
Well, I just heard from the clerk how urgent this is. It had to be done yesterday. So I'm not trying to be difficult here, but I'm just trying to keep this thing moving along.
I prefer to meet in person. And it's not, yeah, that's how I prefer to do it.
Well, I know you prefer to meet in person. But for this issue, we could do this through email and we can do this through Zoom as to understanding what our scope of services is, as we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we're doing it as a town board meeting as opposed to a working session. So
Tim,
do you?
I'm
Susan?
sorry. I'm sorry. Tim had some, I apologize. I can't see when you're talking. Tim, you had some good points. Would you mind putting together a wish list of things that you would like to see prices of?
I can do that. I'll have the treasurer, the clerk send it out to you.
And Tim, you would know better than a lot of us, but I'm wondering if you just generally speak of a CSM. Well, if you do 4 lots, I think that's helpful. But I mean, how far do we have to go, to bring it, to clarify it, so that we really are comparing apples to apples? And so, whatever we can do to kind of narrow.
Normally a CSM is just a single lot. So what you would be asking for is a CSM of a single lot. You'd be looking for a 4-lot minor. And if you want to say, I want to have a major, then you would maybe say you want a major with 12 lots or 28 lots and do the road planning and all of that with it. And so you're going to have a concept to the major. You're going to have a concept to the preliminary. You're going to have a preliminary for the major, and you're going to have a final for the major. And so you just determine how many lots you want to throw at them so that you get a consistent number of, on an average of a 2.5 acre average in the town of Hudson, with the lot size to be no less than 2 acres.
Mm-hmm.
What scope of engineering services do they need to provide to have that reviewed? And that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
So Susan, are you comfortable then? So Tim, you'll put that list together?
Yeah.
I think Tim has a lot of very valuable input that I would like to see.
You'll have it on paper to review at your working session.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Okay, I'm going to move on to actions on replacing the street signs and discussion and action on crack filling. We're going to add all that in and anything road related with the budget that we have to look at.
Don, are we going to schedule the working session?
No, not tonight. I asked, I'm going to have to poll the board and find out what your schedules are because I asked Ken if he's available during the day. And I need to work around Ken's schedule and Susan's and Dan's.
I work till 3:30, but if something absolutely comes up during the day, I can certainly take
So
a
we can
couple hours
we
off.
can work around your schedule, Ken. So
Yeah.
I mean 4 or 4:30 or 5
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
or an
4
evening session.
4:30 works for me. Anytime, whatever, anything beyond that.
And if we do it from a Zoom, then we'll work around your schedule there too. So.
Yep.
Oh, okay. We've got some street signs we have to work on. We've got spray patching and seal coating. So I have that as number 15 on the agenda. Tim, do you want to share with us your thoughts?
Well, I'll start with the number 13 with the discussion action on crack filling for 2020. That was Matt's letter that he sent back to us. It's a sub to the discussion for the February 26th meeting that we discussed at our March meeting, where it was Matt Corbett's cover letter that said he's going to do a couple of weeks of spray patch for $65,000 and crack filling to be approximately $48,000 and the ditch repair of $15,000 for a total of $128,000. And we agreed to all of that. What Matt has come back for is since then he's reviewed the town and said, I only have a couple of days of spray patching that I need to do, not a couple of weeks. So it's going to actually be less than $128,000. We agreed to, on this second page, he had the seal coating for 2020, which totaled originally $200,527. And what we had decided in March was that Prairie Lane was going to be resurfaced. There was no reason to spend $32,309. So we removed that from that list at the March meeting and brought it down to roughly $170,000. But we deferred the $89,000. And the reason I wanted to defer the $89,000 was because we weren't sure what we were going to have for snow plowing yet the remainder of the spring of 2020. Ironically, we didn't have almost nothing at the remainder of that. So we budget in that public works budget a total of $200,000 for snow plowing. And I think we basically spent probably $30,000 or $40,000 so far. So with that said, I'll take you to that highway sheet that she sent out to you today that shows the highway sheet maintenance cost that that Chris sent out to you today. What that is Vicky's got a QuickBooks report that she prints out on a daily basis if you need it. That just says, what have we spent in all the different accounts for our budget? Not the budget numbers that we look at when we're doing our budgeting. But in that public works budget, the highway street maintenance log for budget for 2020 was $722,000, if you look at that sheet. So on April 14th, when I stopped in the office, she printed that QuickBooks report, and we had spent at that point $645,566. We hadn't spent. We said 77,000. So that means that we had 645,000 left. So we agreed at the March meeting to the 128,000 for the crack fillings, spray patch, and ditch control. We agreed to the 170 on page 1, which was actually 168,318, and we deferred the 89,231. I would like to propose that we bring back the 89,231 into this year's, and I asked Matt, can you do that in your schedule for this year? And he said, yes, we'll be back to doing full road maintenance on May 1st, and they are. So out of that cost, that's going to be $385,549 out of that money that's available. So the next line item says allowance for additional maintenance as needed. We don't know what we're going to need maintenance. Some road's going to blow up, additional pothole. You leave 100,000 in there. That says someplace Don's going to need to have some, whether it's sweeping the roads, doing something in the ditches, you got 100,000. We're going to need to leave some allowance for additional snow plowing, and that's why I left 60,000 for the fall. That should be more than sufficient to cover the fall snow plowing. So between the 385, the 100, and the 60, that comes to 545, 549. That's coming out of that 645.56, which gives us a remaining balance in that public works for roads of $100,000. So if we went with the 3D specialist for the street signs, that comes to $20,866 for all of the street signs, and then $20,000 is the estimated labor cost from the county to do that, for a total of $40,866. So if that comes out of the 100,000 that's left, we still have $59,151 left in that maintenance budget that we can reallocate to other things if we need to. So I'd like to propose that we accept the bid from 3D Specialist out of Fargo, South Dakota, to replace all of our signs.
I have a question.
Of 20,000, yes.
Okay, your total was 20,000 for the 3D, 20,866. When I combined the two totals, I came up with 18,930. The extra 1,935, is that the shipping cost to get
Nope.
that to the 20,866?
That's the plate difference. When Joe Murtha, who is the highway sign department guy, if you look at the revised specialty 3D specialty quote that came out from Chris most recently, it says there's an increase from 0.100 plate to a 0.125. It's amazing, Susan, how much thicker that plate is. And so Joe brought one over from the city of Hammond's using that. And he uses exclusively at this point the prison out of Madison, the BCE group, that's the prison group out of Madison. And their quote was 10% more. Okay. And the prison group didn't give us a quote for 2021. And I asked Joe about that. I didn't know why. And Lang didn't give us a quote for the 2021 signs either. And I said that depending on what the price came in, I might want to go for all of them at the same time. But I was worried about what that cost was going to be. And Lang's is 18.5% larger than, and the Bureau of Corrections Enterprise is 10% greater than 3D Specialist. Joe has never used 3D Specialist. So what Joe did was The guy had come over and he's never had any Wisconsin business. He came over and talked to Joe and said, I'd like to have a shot sometime. This is the shot. And so he's basically wanting to do business with us. The majority of what they do is street signs. The majority of what the prison people do is road signs. So it's interesting that he does come in at a better price with 3D. The majority of what other communities do is they use that square post, but we're going to stay with the 2 3/8 round post because we've got all those. We won't have to replace them. And when I look at all the bracket cost, that 10% and 18% of the cost on the labor for both of them, for the brackets, is exactly the same. So it's, in the Lang one, he just did a flat rate for all of the plates at $36, where if you look at the 3D prices, they vary based on how long they are. And the plate length that determines, how long it needs to be.
Thanks, Tim, for that. Because the numbers didn't match up for me. And I have one more question for you, as long as you're on top of this. I understood definitely that 3D was giving us a better price on the signs. However, there was a difference in the brackets. Not a lot, but there was, and I didn't know if you could order the brackets separately. Just item number, okay, on 3D, on item number 7, the 12-inch cap, okay, they are 44 cents a piece higher than Lang. So at 156 pieces, that's $68. And then also on number 8, then that would be another $68 of savings. It's not a lot of savings, but my question to you would be, can you order the caps and the brackets from a separate place than the signs if the savings was substantial?
You probably could, Susan, but it's not substantial. And so I would say if you're going to do it, you would go with one supplier or the other. Today,
Okay,
we've used Lang, Susan, for probably the 30 years that I took over after Sally Giese did signs. We've used Lang all that time, and she used Lang before I took over. So we've used Lang all this point. So I'm glad that Joe actually had Lang quoted, because that way Mike isn't going to be surprised if he doesn't get the business. And I do intend on continuing to use Lang for the fire numbers.
okay, because my computation came up with, if you just went with Lang for the brackets and the caps or whatever, the brackets, it was a difference of a couple $100. It was $200, $240.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's about
$240.
It's about 40 cents less is all.
44 cents, yes. I come up,
You know
and
what I
it
mean?
was 237.28 difference. So that was my question, Tim, is if you could order those pieces separately to save a little money, if it was worth it to save those
No,
couple.
I would not want to do that.
Okay,
I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I just wouldn't. And so what's going to happen with this is, because it's such a large order, Joe would like the town of Hudson to pay for all of these brackets and plates. And in the future, Joe and I talked about it. When a development like Summer Prairie comes in, I will, when we do the final plat, we put together a sheet of all of the street signs and all of the highway signs that need to be put up. We bill the developer for them, and I just give Joe a list of all of that material. He decides when they're going to be put up and goes and does it. And we pay the county for whatever he bills us for those signs. At this point in the future, we will give Joe all of the order for stop signs, speed limit signs, whatever that development needs, along with the street signs, and he'll order them from whoever we requested. If we're going with 3D, he'll order the street signs from 3D and the brackets, and he'll order this highway signs from the Bureau of Correction Enterprises. But we'll be out of the picture of it. Joe will take care of it from the county, Joe Murtha.
Thank you for your homework on this.
So just a summary, Tim, we're getting a better street sign than we have right now. Is that what you're saying
Yes,
with this upgrade?
it is better because it's thicker.
Yeah.
That 0.100 is what our plates are now, but there are two of them. And there's a lot of vibration on those because they're larger, they're out in the wind, out in this open area.
Yeah.
I remember having to go to a lock washer on those because those two plates, I look at it and think, why did somebody steal a nut and washer off of there? And it's just from the amount of vibration. And the only reason that the Bureau of Correction Enterprises, the prison industry, had gone to that 1.125 thickness plate was because that's what they do with all of the recycled aluminum, is they make it into that thickness of plate. And that's why they done it. So we went back to Lang and said, can you do it? And said to 3D, can you make the thicker plate? And 3D said yes, and this is what the additional cost is. So yes, Dan, I want to go to a thicker plate. So I don't think it looks quite as nice, but it's a whole lot cheaper.
Okay.
Than going with the double plate.
Yep. And then now, as far as we're not replacing all of our signs, so will we have some situations where we have a new sign with an old sign, or how does that is that a possibility?
No.
Okay.
I think I can't remember the number off of my top of my head right now. There's 48 sets that I'm leaving that had originally the capital letter and small letters. So I know those are new. Everything else that's capital letters will be replaced. I'd say we're replacing roughly 90% of the street signs in the entire town.
Yeah. Okay. And then just going back to these numbers here. So even our 128 here, though, it sounds like it's going to come in a little bit less than 128, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So we have a little bit more buffer besides. Well, I think you did a great job on this, and it looks good to me. I think we should move ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to add, thank you, Tim, for all of your work on this. On the budget, as it's presented, the allowance for additional maintenance is needed. We've got $100,000 in there left. We've got $60,000 in there left for snow plowing. And we're going to end up with an additional $59,151. So if everything goes wrong and we have a snowstorm of the century, we still have, if I'm doing my math right, $219,000 here to work with through the end of the year. Is that what you're seeing on your budget? That's
correct. The only thing that I'm also reminding everybody is I do not believe in my heart of hearts that the state is going to give the towns, villages, or cities anything for the elections. Just, I don't believe so. So as a consequence, I don't think we should, even though we're keeping track of it, Don, we should figure we're going to have to pay all the additional funds for these elections. So I would think that some of that election cost, I think if I remember looking at the budget line item, we bumped it up to 20,000 because we had 5 elections. But because of the COVID-19, it's going to be a whole lot more than 20,000. So part of that 59,000 is going to get absorbed by elections.
And that's really my concern in visiting with everyone, including the clerk and the treasurer, that, we've got $15,000 now of excess costs. Unfortunately, I agree with you. I don't think the state will give us anything back, but we're keeping all of those costs. So I just don't want to be in a position where we have to borrow money or we've made a terrible mistake. And I think this is the wisest approach.
Just to remind us, we can't, Don, borrow for operating expenses. We can only borrow for capital.
Well, that's why we're going to be up against it if we do anything that we didn't think through today or tonight.
Yes.
Two things I want to add. One thing we possibly could do is defer the cement project. I know we talked about that, and we're going to be getting bids for that for the sidewalk. And then if we think we can save some money here on spray patch and crack filling, the only thing we didn't talk about tonight is those reflective panels that go on the wood
Oh,
post stop
yeah, we
signs
did.
are so inexpensive. So, Tim, I didn't hear what you said, Tim. I'm just saying if there's a way we can add those in when we're doing our signs, I think that would help the traveling public.
Does everybody know what Don's talking about? It's
Yes.
as you approach the stop sign and the stop ahead and the arrow signs, there's a red one on the stop sign. It's just a strip of red reflective material, and on the stop aheads and the arrow ones, there's that yellow strip. The county went and put them out on all of the major intersections, and it's $6 a piece. And that includes the labor to put them up, Joe said. Is that something that the board is interested in doing, putting together a list of what intersections we want the county sign department to do that when they're out doing all the street signs and put them on? Do you want to see the cost of that or not?
I'd say maybe major ones. You know, like
I
McCutcheon.
agree, just major ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
McCutcheon and A and Badlands, or not Badlands, but some of the major ones where it comes up on a
Yeah,
major.
Badlands would be one, yeah.
Yep. I could see that, but not in all the neighborhoods. Like,
Correct, I agree with you. You want
I
me
was
to put
just-
something
I
together
was-
before the next meeting?
I think we should. I
Okay,
think
I
they
will do
look,
that.
I think they look great, and I'm still astounded how cheaply they can do it. So, you know, if you did 10 stop signs, are we talking $60 installed, Tim? I mean, it's
Yes, yes,
almost nothing.
yes.
If you did
And
100,
most of the
if you did
stop
100
aheads
stop
aren't there.
signs, yeah, if you did 100 stop
Yeah.
signs, you'd get $600.
you
So
know,
you really couldn't
Yeah.
even find it in the budget if we thought in those terms.
Yeah,
I think the major ones, you know, like that, remember down on County Road N last summer?
Right?
Don? You know, like that one, that where that lady couldn't see that, you know, where those are really helpful.
Well, Tim, if you want to work with that, I mean, I just think it'd be very easy to say, hey, wherever the development's hit a major road, county roads and whatever, but we'll just have to figure out what other intersections we want. And that's something the county will
Okay.
do, Tim.
yes. Joe had recommended it about 8 months ago when they did it for the county, and I'd forgotten all about it.
You just
So I'll
want to add
put
it
some
into
costs
your,
together.
I-
Yes,
you want to do that, or you want to just, or because we could add it into your motion tonight and be done with it.
you can add it into the motion if you'd like to.
Do that.
I'll add it into the motion to add it into just the major intersections. And I'll let you know what that cost is after it's done.
Okay.
So that
I
we're
think we're
looking
ready,
at
I
the
think we're
total.
ready for a motion. And Tim, it's we
Okay,
appreciate all your work. You should make the motion.
I would move approval of replacing the majority of the street signs with the town of Hudson with the 3D specialist street sign quote for, and the labor cost for the county to do it at an estimated cost of $40,866, which will include putting up the reflective signs on the major intersections. Let's say it's not to exceed 42,000.
And don't you think your motion should, are you doing two motions? Don't you think you'd also include the fact that you were doing the extra 89,000 of work?
8 or 9,000 of work for what?
The 89,000?
of
Oh,
road work.
you want to include that with this? So we're going to do this seal
Yeah, well,
coating on page 2 for 89,231.
Yeah, I
Okay.
thought your motion was going to include everything on your budget
Okay.
that you have here.
Okay.
Unless you want to break
So it
them
would
out, I'd say
include-
let's just do
no,
one.
No. Okay, one, it'll include seal coating on page 2 for 89,231. The street sign replacement and labor to install for not to exceed 42,000 in 2020.
Okay, and then the third part of that is and you also do reflective signs on.
Reflectives, and that's part of that 42,000 then. I think that'll be
That's part of
covered in.
42. Okay, do I hear a second
Yeah.
to that?
And I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so we're all clear that you're gonna add back the 89, 231. Your subtotal's now up to 42, whatever. You'll
Yep.
work on reflective signs for the stop signs, and this is a done deal.
Yep.
Okay, any changes or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
I,
All those opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, I think, unless I missed the line item, I think that's it for tonight.
Something I should have brought up earlier is I noticed reading through last month's minutes for the Ken Tennant driveway request. It says motion by Foster, second by Foster. I think it was motion by, it was either Fosterling or Foster. So we should,
I made all the motions, so I assume that's Fosterling. Vicky was
Yes.
gonna call
It is.
Liz and verify that.
It's already
I don't see
corrected. It's,
anything wrong with it. I
Okay.
think Dem was active.
I'm glad
that
you
night.
noticed it. Nobody notices it, but it's fixed. It's Fosterling.
okay.
Okay.
That's,
Okay,
I just
thank
had that.
you. I
At
thought
least
so,
we
but
know
I
you
wasn't
read,
sure.
Ken.
Yeah, I can read. I got, as long as I'm on here, what do you is the foreseeable future of the bridge on the barge, the railroad bridge? Like, is that bridge, like, is there a timeline where the railroad, like, replaces those bridges, or do you guys know?
I would say that was whenever we brushed the barge, and I want to say that was 2, maybe 3 years ago. I met with Jeff Durkee out there, and he agreed that that bridge was in rough condition. And then he got a hold of the railroad, and they came out and looked at it. The railroad told Jeff Durkee, who's the project engineer for our roads, told Jeff they didn't want him to put it in writing. Because then they're liable for having to replace a bridge if it ever collapses.
Well,
So they met him out. This is a bad situation. They met him out there and agreed that it needed some work, but they could not give him any timeline, Ken, on when they might even consider replacing it.
well,
I don't know what to do about it.
And the reason behind my question is, if we're looking at doing the barge road in the next year or the year after, it sure would be nice to have that widened there. If, I'm just thinking
And it's
ahead.
really touch and go because you're damn near right up against that bridge with widening.
Yeah,
So you're going to probably have to put a guardrail up against the
know.
bridge just to get by with
but
no
I just
shoulders.
look at that bridge every day I go through it, and I'm like, oh my God, is that thing going to last another 10 years? So maybe Jeff Durkee, maybe he would want.
And when you hear the trains go over it and watch it rattle, I agree with you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's spooky. So I had that. I was
If anybody
wondering.
wants to look at that, you can. It's in bad shape. But Jeff Durkee couldn't get a whole lot of sympathy out of the railroad because they don't have any money for replacing it. But my Lord, that thing collapses. It's a major problem.
How long ago was that? Do you know?
Like I said, 2-3 years ago.
Okay, because the railroad's
And they wouldn't give him a timeline.
Because the railroad's making all kinds of money right now. I know that.
Yeah.
So I just had.
Anything else?
I just had that. So.
Okay. Maybe you should have that conversation with Matt, Don.
It's just a question.
Bring it back around. Have Matt get a hold of Jeff Durkee and look at it again and see if there's any contacts we can do the railroad to put it in. I mean, I look at that intersection at 12 and they've had those plates out there for 8-9 months now and they haven't even replaced that bridge.
I'm saying this in all kindness. We can't even get them to put the cement plates in at Highway 12 and Norlane.
Yeah.
So trying to get them to replace the bridge is, I don't mind doing it, but I think we know the answer before we get started. But
I'm kind of thinking ahead, and maybe it would be worth contacting them again and see. I don't know.
Because I'm afraid that's a major shutdown on the railroad when they replace it.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right, anything else to talk about tonight?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay, I'm not trying to shut it off, but we don't. All right, anything else? Thank you,
Nope.
everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk soon. Okay,
Okay.
goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.